Wow, can you believe it? You're already at the final lesson for the entire Green Screen Magic course. What a journey we've been on. In this final lesson, we're going to put the final magic touches onto your big talk, which is truly the icing on the cake. These details are often overlooked, but they make all the difference to whether your production is binge-worthy or not. So let's finish this feature presentation of yours and then make sure you share your video in the community. You never know who you might connect with by doing so. We can't wait to see your work. Let's get to it. All right, the moment of truth, the final lesson in Act 3, the final lesson in Green Screen Magic. Here we are, the final stretch. And all we have left to do in this scene is add our sound effects, some text, and our intro. I'm also going to show you what's called essential graphics here in Premiere Pro. And then we'll have essentially a finalized, beautiful presentation that I'm sure you will be proud to share with your friends and family. So let's begin. First thing we're going to work on is just adding some sound effects now. So over here in our supplied folder, we've got a couple sound effects. We have applause and some audience laughter. So we're going to start off by bringing the applause down. And we're going to place it into our scene. See how that works.
Online education is the future of education.
So that's not necessarily in alignment because we want it to finish.
Online education is the future of education.
So we're just going to trim the front and place it back to the beginning. No, not quite. Here, zoom in a little bit so it's easier to work in that space.
Online education is the future of education.
Almost.
Online education is the future of education.
Okay, so we want to add some keyframes here and just reduce the volume. Reduce the volume on the tail there.
Online education is the future of education.
Cool, that's a little bit better. I'm going to reduce the volume a little bit.
Online education.
Maybe not that much.
Online education is the future of education.
All right, so what we're going to want to do here is create some space at the beginning to allow for this applause to lead the transition in. And then we'll also add our introduction as well. So I'm going to select all, which is Control A on my keyboard, and move this over, create some space. Let's bring it 10 seconds over. Good. And if you zoom out, you can see everything has been selected. Okay, and I'm going to expand there. I can actually move that.
Online education is the future of education.
There, that sounds a lot more realistic, sort of applause. And then let's come over to our supplied Big Talk logo reveal. So this is something that we created just to give that sort of professional feel. Great, so I'm going to trim tail end here, which then will allow me to bring this forward and add in a fade. So there's, again, two ways to add fades. You can come here to Video Transitions, Dissolve, and Cross Dissolve is one way to do that. Now there's a quick way on the keyboard. If you select the edge and then push Control D, that creates the dissolve, the transition. And again, Control Shift D will do the same for the audio. Now these are our default selections for video and audio transition. If you want to change that in your project, all you have to do is come up here
And let's say we wanted to do a film dissolve or a morph cut instead. You just right click on that selection and then set selected as default transition. My preference is the cross dissolve for this, and the constant power works really nice too. And let's watch.
Online education.
It creates a nice fade in. I'm going to expand that a little bit.
Online education. Online education.
Oh, it's a little more than we need. So what's going on there? So let's just look what's happening. So, okay, so you can see here our reveal stops being white at that point. So it's not as long as we think it is. So I'm going to bring it out like this, because that's the length that I want. Trim it back down, place it back into alignment with the other shot. Control D, Control Shift D. And now it's a nice smooth transition all the way through.
Online education is the future of education.
Great, so now we have a really beautiful intro. I can zoom out, I can select all, and then it's just a good habit to bring the beginning of our sequence over to the beginning of, well, the sequence.
Online education is the future of education.
All right, so that's a really nice way to start. All we need to do now is add some text. In the original one, you can see here, we brought in this nice fade in for Brad's name. And I'm just using a similar font here that you would find with TED Talks. Just kind of emulating that world. So let's do the same here. So where do we want to start?
Online education.
Right there. That's a good place. So what we do is we come over to our text tool right here in our toolbar. Click that once, and then you can drag it right onto the image here, the window where you want it to be. And now that pops a new graphic open in an empty space. And on that graphic, in the effects controls, there's now an effect called text. So here we can type in Brad's name. Now what I'm going to do to make this look extra special, like the TED Talks, is I'm not going to add the space. You can add the space here if you wish, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight his last name and then make that bold. And even add a stroke. So there's a whole bunch of options here. You can see this text tells you what text is. If you had many texts on this image, then you will be able to see which one you're affecting. This is the font, so you can click on the font and go through and find the font that you want to work with. This one's not too bad. Let's see what else we might find. Oh, now we got two fonts. I'm going to undo that. And oops, let's undo. I'm going to select all. And I'm going to use my mouse wheel here to move through and see what might pop out into my eye. Oh, you know what? That one looks pretty nice. Nice and plain, nice and simple. Good, so I'm going to make this again bold. Oh, see, there's no bold option here under the regular. Sometimes there's italic and bold options. So what I'm going to do is come down to my stroke. So we can change the colors here. So fill, you can click on that, change it, let's say to red if you wish. We're just going to keep it white. You can also click the eyedropper tool to choose a color that you wish. So maybe I want to emulate this color. Again, I'm not going to for this application, keeping it white. I'm going to click on stroke. And here you can change the color, and this is the width of the stroke. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, like so. You don't want to overdo it. Good. And now a few more options that we have is our justification. So you can center align your text, which we want. And then a few more options. This is one that I like, the tracking. So I'm going to expand the tracking. Oh, that's just expanding the last name. So I'm going to undo that. Select it all. And I'm going to expand the tracking for its whole name just a little bit. Good. And a few other options here. This one is what's called leading. It creates the space between multiple lines. There's another one that's often used. I'm going to increase the size. So this is the size of his name. Let's see how that's looking. It's coming along. It'd be cool if this was a little thinner. So maybe we can find a thinner. Oh, there's a nice thin one. Oh, I like that. Okay. So there we have it. That's his name tag that we're going to use for this shot. Push my V, and I can change the position of it. So that's in a pretty good spot. Like so. Great. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Now we can add a fade to the beginning. So Control D on the edge. I'm going to fade out, Control D.
Education is the future of education. And I believe the future of education, that the future of education belongs to
perfect. So you can use this for so many different applications, which is a really nice way to bring text in and out, for introductions, lessons, that sort of thing. Great. And while we're talking about text, I'm going to introduce to you what's called Essential Graphics. So you come to your window, come down to Essential Graphics. That pops up. And what is included into Premiere Pro this year, as I believe this is fairly new, is a whole bunch of really cool options that's already somewhat animated and created. So let's, for example, create this angled title. I can just plop it right in here. It pops open. Now it's telling me here that the project uses fonts that are not available on this computer, and that font substitution will occur. Sure, that's okay with me. So I'm just going to go okay. And here you can see there's a title in place. I click on that, and it looks like there's a whole bunch of animation already in place, which is pretty cool. So pretty fancy stuff, actually, how it kind of creates that. So a really nice way to add fun animation and texts, titles, those types of things to your project. You can push the T button, click on it, and change anything you wish. Green screen magic it is. And nice. And it just disappears. It's pretty cool. So have some fun playing around with that. There's a lot of different options. Some cool lower thirds for introductions. Again, just okay. There's a nice news one.
Colleges and universities had dropout rates.
So the more that you're using graphics in your sequences, the more it's going to take your computer to process that. So you can see my computer starting to glitch a little bit. That's fairly normal. And this red bar here is telling me that it's having a hard time processing that. Yellow, not so bad. Green, definitely better. I can always go in and out and tell my computer to process that. So I can come up here, render selection, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So I'll just fast forward this.
About it. If colleges and universities had dropout rates like that, they would all be shutting down. Now let's just do an experiment.
So there you go. It only took a couple minutes there to render something that was originally really hard for my computer to process. But now you've got a nice green bar representing something properly rendered. And unless you change something in this section, it's going to stay green. So it's a lot easier and recommended if you're having a hard time going through and watching your parts, then rendering your sequence. And it might take a lot of time for the first render, but if you're only making small little tweaks and rendering as you go, then it's going to speed up the process. And when you actually send this sequence to Adobe Media Encoder to finalize, then it's actually going to use all this render information and speed that process up too. So it's actually a really nice way to improve your workflow as well, especially if you have a machine that has a hard time processing things in the moment. So that is essentially Essential Graphics. Have fun exploring that. That can add some real pizzazz to your work. Another quick thing I want to say too is when you're looking for sound effects, I always go to freesound.org. There's an incredible community of sound makers and producers that are always uploading really cool sound effects, and that's my first go-to place. It's free. They accept donations. Highly recommend it. Go check it out, freesound.org. And to the end, hopefully yours looks a little more finished than mine. I'm going to come in, and what we want to do is add again the audience.
Courses that are out of
find the last word.
This world.
I hope you didn't forget to say thank you.
Out of this world. Thank you.
Great, and that's a nice place just as he's walking off. I'll cut that there. Delete, and I'm going to add our green screen MAJIK logo reveal at this point. Again, click the border, Control D, Control Shift D. There we go. That's your option if you want to use this to share green screen MAJIK with friends and family that are out there, colleagues. But it's also an option if you wish to just use your own. A really nice place to go to find really amazing graphic designers and editors to help you with this sort of stuff is Fiverr.com. That's Fiverr.com. And so you can go there and for reasonable prices, get animators to create these amazing pieces for you. Yeah. Great. So then I just put a fade to that. And that's how we work. Now the last thing that I can think of here before this is completely done is, here where I'll find it in here, this laughter piece. So if you made a joke, a little bit of laughter in your scene, it's a nice way to interact. So we found this really nice audience laughter piece and sells the whole audience thing here with Brad telling this joke.
Probably still getting the hang of email. No offense, sir.
All right, so have fun putting the final touches to your masterpiece. Again, just adding sound effects makes a big deal and really upgrades the experience of your viewers. Now, don't overdo it because too much of a good thing can really ruin a good thing. And there you have it. That's pretty much it.